following is a production of Cary TV, the Town of Cary's government access channel.
Good evening. We call to order this meeting of the Planning and Zoning Board, and our first order of business is to adopt the agenda. I understand there may be a change to that agenda.
Yes, I move at the request of the applicant to amend the agenda and remove 16 REZ02 from tonight's agenda.
There's a motion.
Second.
And there's a second. Is there any discussion on that? If not, would all those in favor of amending the agenda as moved, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Say no, please. The motion carries unanimously. The agenda is amended. 16 REZ02 has been removed from our agenda. The next step is to adopt our minutes and approve them from the April 18th meeting. Is there a motion to that effect?
Sure.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Sure, second.
Is there any discussion on the minutes from the last meeting? If not, would all those in favor of adopting and approving the minutes please say aye? Aye. Any opposed, say no, please. That motion also carries unanimously. We do not have any public hearings this evening. I don't know that I'm required to go through the public hearing rules without a public hearing. If not, I will just move straight to the cases without a public hearing. For those of you out there, these cases will involve the staff coming to introduce the case, giving us the particulars on it. After that, the applicant will have 10 minutes to present whatever they would like to present to us on that case. From that point on, there won't be a public hearing. We will then be able to ask questions of the applicant directly or of the staff, and then we may discuss the case and render a decision after that. Our first case now at the amended agenda is 16 REZ03. Good evening.
Good evening. This is a request to rezone about 21 acres located at 1304 Bachelor Road and 4309 Pine Rail Lane. This is a vicinity map. You can see Bachelor Road extends to the south and connects with Green Level West. The existing zoning on this site is R40 watershed in Wake County. The proposed zoning is R40 conditional use and also conservation residential overlay district and watershed protection overlay district. There's one zoning condition proposed that would limit land use to detached dwellings. The land use plan designation for this site is VLCR, which is the very low density conservation residential. This would, with the conservation subdivision, would allow up to 1.5 units per acre with lot sizes as likely to be 15,000 square feet as a minimum based on the conservation residential standards and the amount of regulatory open space on the site. There are some stream buffers shown on Cary's GIS maps. These features would be field determined at the time of the site plan review. Here you can see the American Tobacco Trail that's located to the east of the property. There are no other parks and recreation facilities in the immediate vicinity. This shows the transportation plan. Bachelor Road is shown on the existing comprehensive transportation plan as a collector. This collector does connect only to Green Level Church Road to the south, and staff does have some concern with the access to the site itself, which is via an existing privately maintained gravel drive. Since Bachelor Road is designated as a collector on the town's existing CTP, and this classification and alignment is being looked at and studied as part of the CTP update with the ongoing Imagine Cary plan, where we can look more at the extension of Bachelor Road and where that may go in the future. There were no speakers at the public hearing, and there were no comments by council members. And that concludes staff's comments, and at this time I'll ask the applicant to come forward with his comments.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the Planning and Zoning Board. My name is Glenda Topp with Glenda S. Topp and Associates. I'm here tonight representing the property owner. Ms. Bierman did a thorough job explaining the request. This is very similar to the other requests that the board and council has seen in this area. They're asking for R40 zoning. It's in the Southwest Area Plan. They are complying with the requirements, the Conservation Overlay District. If it does get rezoned, as we know, at this point, access and transportation issues are not really part of the part of the rezoning. So when they come in with their development plan, then those issues would be addressed. But again, we did add one zoning condition, which again is similar to what's been done in the past, that the only use allowed on the property is detached residential. And again, it is in compliance with the growth plan and the Southwest Area Plan. And we ask for the board's support, and I'm here to answer any questions for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's begin with questions of our applicant or the staff. Does anyone have anything they would like to ask?
I would like to ask about the transportation plan. So what are the concerns about the private road? Is that property that these people own and will maintain, or is that road being maintained by someone else?
Currently, the road is within a public right-of-way, but it's beyond the end of state maintenance, and it's privately maintained. Beyond that, I would ask for Transportation and Facilities staff if they have any further comments on that.
Yeah, I mean, privately maintained by who is what I'm trying to get at.
Is
it the applicant?
At this point, it would be the property owners. There's, I don't know the specific nature of that agreement, but there are, property owners in this area and also this property as well, that there would be a private, arrangement where they would maintain that road. It's a very narrow gravel road that goes up to service the properties up in this area.
I'm familiar with these types of situations. Mm-hmm. And that's my concern, is that we don't approve development here without a clear idea of who's going to take care of that road. I guess it's going to be improved.
Well, it would be, it would have to be improved.
But
and
only
it is
half
with,
of it.
Yes. And again, I would ask if our Transportation and Facility staff has any information to add to that. But it would need to be improved to a minimum amount for fire safety and to meet the town's minimum requirements. And then with it being in a public right-of-way, at some point, the state would would take over the maintenance, as there is an existing public right-of-way.
The other situation I'm familiar with that's like this, as it turns out, what they're going to put in is a 12-foot paved section, which is really not a road. You can't pass on it. So I would like some more information about what's planned here. And and also, if you could show me where Pine Rail is. I noticed that the address was Pine Rail and Bachelor.
That's the, I'm on it. Perhaps the applicant could direct that. There must be, I don't see Pine Rail specifically listed here, so I'm assuming that's a private street that's not showing on their maps to the specific location.
So would you like to go first, transportation or applicant?
I don't know. They can fight it out. Transportation. Yeah. Right. So if you could explain to me what this road is going to look like, since it's the only access.
At this point, it is a little difficult to determine how the alignment would pan out because we really do not have a subdivision plan in place.
Right.
But once the applicant proposes a subdivision plan, it would either be the collector that it is proposed today on our comprehensive transportation plan, or at the minimum, it will be a local street that would comply to the town's road section.
Okay, so they actually have to improve this to at least a minimum of local street.
That is correct.
They can't just put in a half a road and call it done.
If they were to provide anything less than our local street section, that would have to provide a minimum of 22-foot paved section for two-way vehicular travel.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Sure.
And in terms of Pine Rail Lane actually comes up into the northern part of the property through this area.
That's what I was thinking,
Yes.
that it comes off of White Oak. And that is also a dirt road. Is there going to be access through Pine Rail?
That would be looked at the time when the subdivision plan comes through to meet the connectivity requirements. And they're obviously, for whatever the first subdivision that comes through this area will, in order to get any approval, would need to deal with the connectivity and the road improvement issues through here, which I think is one of the concerns that we have, is the existing infrastructure is minimal, and that will have to be created in order for any subdivision activity to occur.
Right.
If I could just
Sure.
add, in working with the applicant, and when we had the DRC meeting or pre-application meeting, the owner of the property is totally aware of the infrastructure that's out there and what would be required if and when the property is developed. So it's not a question of not meeting the town standards, because he or she will have to do that when the property comes in for subdivision approval. At this point, they're just looking to get the property rezoned into Cary with R40 under the town standards. And then, at the time a development plan is submitted, they will have to go through another pre-application meeting, and they'll be required to meet the standards that are deemed appropriate and necessary, excuse me, for transportation for this property.
Okay. I just kind of remembered that part of a rezoning is that the required infrastructure is in place. Is that not true? Where did I read that? Don't we normally look to see if the area can be serviced and it has infrastructure?
Well, it does have, it does have the road,
Has
the
a private
rights of
road.
way. In terms of the specific improvements that are required, they're, depending on what's existing, there are varying levels of improvements that would be required of the developer. But those are all requirements that would have to be met in order for the development to occur. But the basic framework for the right-of-way to get into the property is there.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Are there any historical structures located on site?
I don't believe there are.
They're not? Okay.
No. Okay.
That was all.
Any other questions at all? If not, would someone care to make a motion? Anyone at all?
I'll make a motion.
Yes.
I move that the board forward case number 16 REZ03 to Town Council with a recommendation for approval as it is consistent with the comprehensive plan and all other applicable plans and is reasonable and in public interest for the reasons set forth in the staff report and presentation.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Carlo, if you would lead our discussion, please.
Well, we face these transportation issues everywhere. I mean, the good news here is that it follows the Southwest Area Plan, no deviations. These are growing pains that we have in this area. And I do like to make sure that there is the appropriate recognition that they're going to have to provide something that's fully functional two ways through this area. There's a lot of private roads out here. I wouldn't want to set any precedents that, had people being run over. But overall, it looks good.
I think Carla and Ryan brought up any concerns I had, so I think it's a good rezoning.
Any other discussion at all? If not, would all those in favor of Carla's motion please say aye? Aye. Are there any opposed? Say no, please. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We are now on to, I believe, 16 REZ05. Hello, Ms. Grennan.
Good evening. This is a request to amend zoning conditions associated with property located at 1608 Kildare Farm Road on approximately half an acre. Subject property shown here highlighted in yellow. An aerial view of the subject property shows that it's currently wooded. It is adjacent to a parcel of land, as you can see here, that's been cleared and is currently for sale. There was a little bit of confusion about which property this was. The subject property tonight is the Hannah property and not the property directly to the south, which has a for sale sign on it. Site is not impacted by any stream buffers or floodways according to Cary's most recent GIS maps. Kildare Farm Road is a major thoroughfare, and there is an existing Cary transit route on Kildare Farm Road. The land use plan designation is office and institutional. The existing zoning is office and institutional conditional use. The current zoning conditions that are in place are not being proposed to be changed. That would limit the building size to 5,000 square feet, limit the use to general office and medical office. Actually, that is the one that is being modified. Set limitations on lighting fixtures, require setbacks from the western property line that exceed the ordinance standards, and limit building signage to just signage facing Kildare Farm Road. No change to the O&I conditional use zoning designation, but the zoning condition that is proposed to be amended is to allow residential use in a non-residential building and retail sales and service in accordance with the use-specific standards in the LDO. In a straight O&I zoning district, you have an office and institutional building, you could have up to 50% of the building be residential use, provided you had 50% as office. And you could have 20% of the building be retail sales and service. When this was presented to you a little over a year and a half ago, the applicant put some very restrictive conditions on it to limit the uses and really painted themselves into a corner. Now the owner of the building would like to live in the medical office building and needs this amendment to the zoning conditions in order to do so. So the community meeting, there was general support, but concerns about the potential impact if there were multiple buildings or multiple dwellings proposed in the building. And those were some conditions raised at the town council public hearing. There were 2 neighbors who expressed concern about how many dwelling units could you have. One citizen who talked about traffic. And then one of the citizens who talked about the number of dwelling units also expressed concerns about some clearing that he had observed in the perimeter buffer. The council did ask, how many dwelling units could you have? And the building is limited to 5,000 square feet, so a maximum of the building that could be residential is only 2,500 square feet. So could you have more than one? Possibly, but did not seem likely, based on what's being proposed. The principal use would have to be office. As to the perimeter buffer and the concerns about that, there is a private cemetery toward the rear of the property. When I posted the property, I didn't see the clearing at first because there's a lot of dense vegetation with leyland cypress all around the property. But there is a cemetery that has been recently restored. There's new grave markers, a new headstone, and there were a number of trees that were impacting the cemetery. And a lot of this area around this small private cemetery has been cleared. There is a gap. There was not a lot of clearing in what would be the perimeter buffer, but with the clearing a little bit more internal to the site, you can see that there's an opening and you can see one of the neighbors' properties. Assuming this gets approved and the development plan goes through, that buffer would have to be enhanced and portions of it beefed up so that it meets that type B semi-opaque standard. So while there might be some gaps in there, there was not a lot of tree removal in the buffer area, but there was restoration taking place around the cemetery site. So this concludes staff's presentation. Following the applicant's comments, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. There's the applicant.
Good evening.
We have you on that side there. Thank you.
Sorry. Good evening. I'm Dr. Hanna. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. I just explain a little bit more about it, as Deborah has done a good job. I always thought that I could live in the building. I've always planned to live in the building. I presently live in my office now, and I just was going to move into this building. So it's always been planned that way, but unfortunately we zoned it out somehow, so no pun intended, but we zoned out that, and also retail sales for me. Plastic surgeons, I'm Cary Plastic Surgery, by the way. I've been here for almost 30 years. And, we sell little things like Latisse and things like that, skin products, and, we're not selling Starbucks coffees and things like that. So my goal is, number one, to build a building that looks like a home. And I will live there. I've always planned to live there. And but it will have an office and a portion of it, which like 2/3 of it will be an office. I also like privacy, so it's not really a big deal for me to have a really good buffer between me and the neighbors behind me. And unfortunately, the graveyard, which I like and I want to preserve it, which I'm in the process of doing, the trees were overgrowing the gravestones and things like that. So to preserve the cemetery, as Deborah saw, you had to take out some of those to get it together. So, because there's been an unattended cemetery for at least about 25 years. So in terms of how many units should be in this building, the best use for the property really is office space, not residential. I mean, I don't know how many doctors that live in their building, but I only know one doctor that lives in this building, and that's me. I don't know anybody else that actually does that. But I have lived in my office for the last 20-some-odd years, so I'd like to do that as well. But the best use for the property is, if I would be office, not residential. So, there's a lot of possibilities, but the probabilities that if the building is sold, that it would just be turned into office space, and it's limited to 5,000 square feet. And, it's possible that my neighbors could, rent their homes to 5, college kids in the neighborhood. But that's probably not going to happen, but it's probably possible. So, in also the land south of me is a 50,000 square foot building, of which 25,000 square feet could be used for residences. And they didn't seem to be too concerned about that. So, I would hope, I could get a favorable consent on this. And I know I would like it to be a nice building, beautifully landscaped. Hopefully, I won't be seeing my neighbors behind me because I don't really want to. But, if I could answer any questions about the property, I'd be happy to do so.
Thank you. We may have some. Never know.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for the applicant or for the staff at this point?
I have a question, Ms. Grannon. Just so that I'm clear in understanding what you're saying here. So assuming that the change to the zoning goes through, there's a maximum of 50% of the site that can be devoted to residential.
That's correct, provided 50% is office. The principal use of the building has to be office. At least 50% of the building would have to be office.
So we couldn't, I guess the reason I'm asking this question, we couldn't find ourselves in a case where it's like a bait and switch where it becomes residential.
No,
And it's actually,
the base zoning is office and institutional.
Okay.
It would be a residential use in a non-residential building.
okay, I understand. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I just have one regarding the nature of the coming back to us for this. I believe Dr. Hanna just mentioned the building next to him could be, I think, something on the neighborhood of 50% residential. So 50% residential in O&I is part of the base setup. A year ago or whatever, there was a condition that put too much restriction
Correct.
on, and now we're going back to base setup.
So that it meets what's allowed per the LDO.
Okay. So we're not doing anything less restrictive.
Correct.
by any means.
Correct.
Are there any other questions?
I motion that the board forward case number 16-REZ-05 to the Town Council with a recommendation for approval as it is consistent with the comprehensive plan and all other applicable plans and is reasonable and in the public interest for the reasons set forth in the staff report and presentation.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
And I think we're just fixing something that we overfixed before.
Seems to be a simple oversight, and I see no issues with addressing it.
All right. Anybody else have any discussion on that?
I appreciate that he's restoring the graveyard. I think that's nice.
I'll second that one.
And I'll say, just for having witnessed this whole process play out from the neighborhood meeting all the way through, the coming together from both sides that's taken place all the way along here. I really appreciate watching that happen. And what we come up with is a fairly easy case to deliberate because of that. So that's always good to see the neighbors all work together on something. So without anything else, would all those in favor of this motion to approve please say aye? Aye. Are there any opposed? This motion carries unanimously as well. I believe that takes care of our agenda of cases. I don't know of any no or old business, and I am not just trying to get us to 7 o'clock. No, not at all. I think we're about to set a new record if someone were to make a
I motion to close. I always like
a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
I will second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you and good evening.
This has been a production of Cary TV. Visit the Town of Cary's website at townofcary.org.